Hey class, welcome back. We're going to try this again, and right now we are a few days into our HTML unit, and we are, some people are ahead of others, some people are right on track, so we're going to do kind of two videos in one. So I'm going to let you know that if you're already above this, you can just go ahead and skip towards the end. In the first part of the video, we're going to talk about the basic block and inline elements that we have, our different tags that we should have by now. And if you're ahead of that and ready for styling your website, we're going to start talking about CSS, and CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So the first thing I want to let you know that HTML, just the HTML code in general, is not necessarily for the look, the look and the feel of your page. It's really just to set up its structure. Okay, the look and the feel comes from the styling through cascading style sheets. Okay, so your CSS, and we're going to get into that next. So what we're going to do is, the first part, we're going to talk about our tags, the different tags that you should have on your page right now. And I'll go over all of the tags, and I'll show you what my website looks like so far. It's very basic, it's very plain, it's black and white, just like yours should look. The text is just normal regular font, and it's very simple. So I'll show you what mine looks like. You can compare it to yours, and remember to do your video, to do your website on whatever your interest is, okay? Because that'll help you out as you go along, as you build this thing. So the first thing, we're going to talk about some of the different elements that we have. And my website, just to let you know, it looks pretty much like this, okay? If you notice, we have the main stuff right here. You have the necessary doc type HTML, okay, at the very top, and then after that I have my opening HTML, tag. All right, all of these tags are very important to have. So you need to make sure, 100% make sure that all of the tags that you type are typed correctly and are in the right place. Okay, because if they're not in the right place, then your web page isn't going to look good, and it's not going to work, and you'll get frustrated. So, my web page looks like this. Yours should look similar. All right, these tags that I highlight and go over are necessary for you to have too. Okay, so here we go. We have the doc type HTML. That's important for to tell the web browser what type of file it's going to view. So very important to have, and that's just a left bracket with an exclamation point, doc type space HTML, and then right bracket. So we're going to get that in. The next thing is an HTML tag. All right, we've got the HTML tag in, and then below that we have the head. We have the head element, open, and then the close. Here's the close, here's the open, and we've got our title. Okay, so we got our title in, and that is going to show up. Right here. So Mr. Miskey's awesome website, right up at the top. We're going to show that. It's right here at the top. We're going to show that, and that is the way you do that. The way you find that is right here. You hit the head and the title. Head, and you put it in the title. Mr. Miskey's awesome website. So after that, you're going to make sure you close the title, close the head, and then the next element we have is the body. And in the body, you already know that this is where everything goes. So everything in the body. You see I've highlighted everything that's in my body that's going to be shown on the page. So we have our opening body tag, and then way below we have our closing body tag. And notice how the closing body tag is a / and then body. So that's the main, big difference in opening and closing tags. So you should have a body tag, and then inside the body tag is where your content is going to go. So I have an H1 header tag. Okay, so my H1 header tag is going to show my website, and if you see right here, here is my header. Okay, my header that shows up on the page. All right. So if we go back to it, we have my H1, man records highest ever kill streak in Modern Warfare 3. That's pretty strange, isn't it? Well, we've got that going. The next thing we have is a paragraph tag, and that's a P, and that's the start of a paragraph. So if you see, I've made a paragraph right here on my website, but I've also made a paragraph in here in my HTML code, and all of that is wrapped, all of this text right here is wrapped in a paragraph tag. And here's the opening right here, and here's the closing. So you need to have a paragraph tag. Very important. The next thing that I want you to have is so you want to we're going to style the text a little bit, just a tidbit. So I want something that is bold, and I want something that is italicized. So I decided to go ahead and bold my name. So I put a B. The B tag, it stands for bold. So I've got wherever I want to put it, I put the tags around the words, the letters, the sentences, the paragraphs, whatever I want to be bold, I put the tags around. So I've got my B tag right in front of my name, and then at the end of my name I have the closing B tag. Okay? So if you see on the screen, that makes my name bold. If we get rid of that tag, if you see I get rid of the tag, it looks normal. Go back to my page, hit refresh. If you look right here, you're going to change. It's no longer bold. But if we go back and we type that back in, and we hit save, we can go back to our page, bold again. So it's simple as that for bold tag. And the same thing if you want to make something italicized, the tag for that is I. So I wanted to make Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 italicized. And so I just wrapped that. I wrapped Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 in the I tag, or italicized tag. So you need to have a bold tag and an italicized tag. The next thing I want you to do is we're going to work on putting images into our website. And this is a little bit different than a normal tag, because it is a self-containing tag. There's no opening and no closing. So it's just a simple one tag. And actually it's not simple, it's a little more advanced. So it starts off, to do an image, you do the left bracket, and then you do img space src equals, and then you do the quotation marks, and then you need to do wherever the file is located. So if this is important, because if you don't know where the file is located, then if you don't know where the file is located and you can't find the file, then neither will your website be able to find the file. So most of the time you will download the file, the picture file, and you will either store it in one of two places. You'll store it in the same directory or the same place as where your HTML file is, your index.html file, or you will try to make it nice and neat and store it in an image folder. So if you store it in an image folder, that is one level higher. It might be like this. Okay, image. But mine right now is stored in the exact same place as my HTML file. So it's just going to look like that. If you misspell it wrong, let's say I take out the M and I spelled it wrong, look what will happen. It doesn't know what to do. It can't find the file. So it needs to be spelled right. It's very important. So typos will screw your website up really fast. So very important to have all typing correct. These next little things are inside the image tag is called, they're little attributes, okay? I have right here the ALT equals, and then with the quotation marks, MW3 and quotation marks, that is the alternative. So this is if people they can't see, or if they don't show images on their website, this will show up in place of it. So also, especially for people who have screen readers, this will read it to them, so it tells them what it is. Let's say, but to see the MW3, my alt, all you got to do is on the page, highlight over it, and in a second it should pop up. Maybe not. Maybe if I made that a something else. Let me spell it wrong. Let me see what happens when I spell it wrong. There. If you spell it wrong, it puts it in place of it. So, and it lets you know exactly, what is supposed to be there. And it's a good way to keep things, clean and tidy, and helps you exactly know what's supposed to be what. So, that's very important. So, typos are very important for you not to mess up. The next tag we have is the width tag. And now there's two different ones. You can do a width, or you can do a height, or you can do both. So I ended up just doing the width, and it's just width equals with the quotation and how the size I want it to be. So I want it to be 560 pixels. So 560 px. Px is short for pixel. So how wide is it? And I decided it was only going to be 560 because it is going to be the same size as my video. So my video is 560 pixels wide. Alright, after all that, you can put, there's more things, there's less things, you don't have to put them all. It could be as simple as just having that, and it'll work just the same. However, if I put that, whatever I put doesn't matter. You need to have the closing bracket right here. Notice how there's not a tag. There's not like a regular H1 tag and then everything that's inside the H1 tag, there's a closing H1. It's different. It's just a simple one element. There's just one open element that doesn't even, the closing is at the end. Alright, so you need to know, big time, you need to know that. So that's how you insert an image into HTML. The next thing I did, which you might do here in a little bit, is add a video. Okay, and adding a video is just pretty much as simple as going to YouTube and finding your video online and just clicking on the share button and then the embed button, and notice how it gives you a little code at the bottom. And all you do is right click, copy, and then where you need to put it into your website, so you can, so that, notice the same code as my website. I just pasted it in, and bam, shows up on my website, and it allows me to play that from there and to do whatever I need to do, and to make it look cool. So that's adding to, notice that's adding to my website. But notice how my website right now kind of looks like a blog post. I've got a header, I've got text, I've got a nice cool logo, or a nice cool picture, and a nice cool video. So it's starting to come along. It's still a little black and white, still a little boring looking, but slowly our page is going to come together. So one thing I want you to do, which is very important, is you need a cheat sheet. So a way to get a cheat sheet is to go online, okay? And going online to get a cheat sheet makes things much easier, because a cheat sheet will have all the different tags that you can use, all the different attributes you can add to it, a lot of different stuff, coloring and sizing, all these things that you can add to your website. And it's because there's dozens, numerous of them. So they're hard to memorize. It takes time to memorize them, but after a little while you will. But in the beginning, use a cheat sheet, and to do that, all you got to do is simply just go to Google and just type in HTML cheat sheet. So notice HTML cheat sheet popped up a bunch of different things. So we've got a bunch of different links over here. This first one right here looks like WebMonkey, and WebMonkey, if that came up as the first thing, I trust it. That seems like a pretty good thing. We've got our little cheat sheet, and below, it's nice. It tells you exactly what tags there are and all the different stuff that is in it. So we've got our H1 tags, our H6, which is smaller headlines. It has our bold, has our italicized, has other things, such as cite. You can do citations. You can make teletype. You can do, which we'll talk about right here. It says font color. You can change your font color In that, however, we want to leave this text, this font size, like changing the size and the color, out of the HTML. You can do it, but we want to leave it out of the HTML and do that when we get to CSS, our cascading style sheets. Here's how you do a link, which we're going to go on, which we're going to learn here in a little bit, and then some other formatting, with your paragraph. If you want to align the text to the left or align the text to the right, this is just another attribute, is align, and then you're going to learn about, or if not, you haven't learned about it already, you're going to learn about, lists, how to make lists in your thing, so in your website. So cheat sheet is very important. You need to get a cheat sheet, whether it's WebMonkey or another place. Just go to Google and type in HTML cheat sheet. Now there's cheat sheets for everything. There's cheat sheets for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, anything, whatever type of coding you do. There's always kind of a cheat sheet. Even for different class subjects, you might be able to figure out a cheat sheet. So it just helps you remember or study whatever you need to do. So what we're going to do, what I want you to do first is we're going to watch this first video, and if you have already seen it, if you've already seen this first video, I believe it's number 5, beginning web design number 5, okay? And if you've already seen it, it's a long one, it's about 20 minutes long. So if you've already seen this in class, I want you to just go ahead and skip 20 minutes into this video and start on number 6 onto CSS. And what we're going to do is, after the CSS, we're going to work together and we're going to add CSS to our website. Okay, so do that slowly. Remember, if you've already seen this video, just go ahead and skip 20 minutes into the start of the second video, and we'll get going. Okay, all right, sounds good.
Welcome to episode 5 of Beginner Web Design, and we pretty much know how to set up the basic layout of our page, and we went over some basic formatting elements, and now we're going to go a little more in depth about the types of elements. So there are 2 types of elements. There are block level elements and there are inline level elements. And a block element pretty much takes up the entire line or multiple lines on the page. An inline element fits right in the line of text, so it doesn't really take up as much space normally, and it doesn't really disrupt the other text that's around it or the other elements around it. So let's just take a look at a few examples of this. So if you remember in episode 2, I think it was, I briefly mentioned the P element, and this element is just declaring a paragraph. So we can type a bunch of text in here, and no matter what it is going to stay by itself because P is a block level element. So if, just say, we have some text before the paragraph and some text after the paragraph, when we preview it, the paragraph gets its own little area here. Now the reason why it's important to use block level elements is because by nature any text that you type into the body will be in line. So for example, if we try to type two paragraphs in our body, so let's just say first paragraph, and then we want to type the second paragraph. So naturally we're just going to hit return twice and just say second paragraph. And you would think that that would create 2 different paragraphs. But because it's all text within the body, it's in line. So there really is no difference between doing this and doing this. It's the exact same thing. But if we wrap these in paragraph tags, now they each become their own line because they have a separate little box that's containing them, and that's essentially what a block element is. It's just a box that goes across the entire width of the page. Now, these are really customizable in CSS because we get to add different things like margins and paddings and even backgrounds to these. And it really increases what you can do by using block elements. And they don't always have to be 100% width. We'll soon learn that you can make them different sizes and make them connect with each other. It's really quite awesome how it works. So, other than that, there are very easy to remember block elements. For example, if just say you want a header on top, we can type header.
For a minute.
Right? Now inside, let's say we want navigation, so we can type nav.
Do you want help?
And in here we can type all of our navigation links. And these are both block level elements. So here I have a block level element inside another block level element, which is the nav inside of the header, which is possible. You can do that. Now, other than that, there is also things like footer. That's really helpful if maybe you need a spot to display your copyright info. That works too. You can use article. You can use aside, which is great for sidebars. And there's just a whole lot more elements that are block level that really do help add content to your website. Now, I'm not going to list every single element in this video, but as we progress and add more and more things to our pages, we will be learning about them in time. Now, as for inline elements, we have already gone over a lot of them. For example, bold, strong, italic, emphasis, strike through. And that's pretty much all the ones that we need to worry about for right now. There are some other things, but mostly any other inline elements that you will be using is part of forms, which there's a separate tutorial on how to make forms, which will be coming out in a few days. So, but besides those elements, there are two elements that are very, very frequently used, and that is the div and the span, and I'll type these out. And these elements pretty much have no styling on them whatsoever, so they're not going to necessarily edit the content that's in them by default. However, they kind of provide a clean slate for CSS to use. So we're going to learn that now we can use these elements in conjunction with CSS, and CSS can put certain styles on the div and on the span, and it won't interfere with any other styles, such as, for example, if you were to use the B for a bold piece of text. Now we can target this with CSS and just say make it bold and italic. But if just say you didn't want to do that and you wanted to leave the regular functionality of the B element, you can just use a span. And that span is kind of like a nice little work area to create your own custom styles. And you'll see what I mean when we finally go into CSS. Now let's look at some more advanced elements that kind of require a little bit more work than just declaring an opening tag and a closing tag. So let's look at lists right now. There are two types of lists. There are ordered lists, which are OL, and there are unordered lists, which are UL. Unordered is going to be prefixed by bullets for every item in the list, and ordered lists have a prefix of numbers, so it'll go from 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So in our ordered lists, if just say we wanted to add a few things here, we have to type in an LI, which means list item, and then we can type in the first item. So I'll type milk. Now we go to the next line and we're going to do another list item. We're going to do eggs and bread. Also, do not forget that you do have to type the closing tag for each one of these LIs. Now, you just really don't see me type it in because my editor just closes off the tags for me automatically. But if your editor does not support that option, make sure you do type it in manually. Otherwise, it's just not validating code. Now, if we preview this, we see that milk, eggs, and bread all have a number 1, 2, and 3, and they are automatically assigned, so we don't actually have to type in each one. This is great because just say we have to insert another list item here. So I'll make it candy. Now you can see it automatically renumbers them, and we don't have to go in and change practically anything. The unordered lists are exactly the same. So I'm just going to copy all of these and paste them right into our unordered list element. And if we preview that, now we have it with a prefix of bullets. So you could see that you can just easily create lists just by using any of these. And don't worry if you don't necessarily like these styles. There are other options that we can use in CSS to make it Roman numerals or square bullets and things like that. We'll get into that. Now I also want to go over the image tag because this is something that you will probably use a lot. So the image tag is a self-closing tag. So for example, all we have to type is image and then a slash and the closing bracket. Just as that meta was, we don't have to type an entire closing tag like that. It's unnecessary. Now how do we actually specify the image that we want to use? Well, it's kind of confusing to some people, but it's really not that difficult to get your head wrapped around. Basically, on any HTML element, we can add attributes. So, for example, this image has an attribute called source, or src. And this source attribute just lets you tell the browser where this image is located. So in order to take advantage of an attribute, all we have to type is src. And then we can type an equal sign and 2 quotes. Inside these quotes, we just type whatever the value of source is. So I'm going to insert an image right here. And this is the link to an image. If we go to our browser and we go to that URL, you will see an image. So I just put that inside of our image element here. So this works with anything. As long as you know what an attribute is, all you have to do is put a space after the element name, that attribute, an equal sign, and then the value in quotes. Now if it seems confusing to you, don't worry. In time you will get the hang of it, and I'll show you more examples in the future. Now if we go ahead and preview this, we will see the image on our page. However, there is one more attribute that we have to add onto this image. That attribute is alt. So we're going to put another space here and type in alt equals quote quote. And alt just specifies what to display in the case that the browser cannot find the image. So normally, if just say it can't find the image, so I'll just put in, any random URL that obviously isn't an image. If we go and preview it, this little question mark icon comes up, and it's pretty much the same for any browser. Now, just say we want to specify what the browser should say in the case that this does happen, we can type that in the alt attribute. So let's type in dog. Now I'm just going to put back this URL. And the other thing that we can do for images is put in a height and a width. And the reason that you may want to do this is because if you have used CSS to make the image basically interact with other parts of the page or other parts of text, then you don't necessarily want it to kind of mix up the text while it's loading. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So let's say we have a paragraph here. So I'm going to wrap this in a paragraph, and then let's just say we have a lot of text here. So I'm going to grab some text and put it right in. Now when we preview that, it was kind of fast, so you might want to just rewind real quick and just see that again. But basically, while the image is loading, this text is moving down, and that might not be exactly what you want. So you can kind of see it again. For images after the browser has already looked at the web page, it pretty much caches these images, so it's not going to necessarily take as long. But with some of these images, we still have that bouncing effect. As you can see, it just happened right there. The text started up here, and then the image slowly pushed it down. So maybe you don't necessarily want that to happen. You want it to stay the same while it's loading. How do we do that? We can specify a width and a height of that image. So let's put in here width 400, height 300. And now when we preview that, it's not going to happen. You can see even when an image is loading, the text stays in place because it knows how big that image is going to be. Now you can also set it to a different size. So let's say if you wanted to make it half the size, you can do 200 and 150, and the image is going to be smaller now. However, you do have to be careful, because when you are changing the size of an image, the browser will take longer to render that on the page. So use that sparingly.
Yeah.
Now the other thing we can do with images is there's an align attribute. So we can say align right, and then when we preview it, it's now on the right. Look at that. We could say left. There you go. We could say middle. And this kind of makes it the middle of one line, not necessarily the entire paragraph. But if you do want to mess around with that, you can use that. And you can play around with these settings to get the way you want your image to be shown on the page. Now that's pretty much it for the image tag. So now we know a lot of elements where we can actually go ahead and make at least a typeface in our browser. So we know how to create headers, we can create basic formatting like bold, italics, things like that. We can use paragraphs, images, lists, a whole bunch of different things. And I know this episode is getting pretty long. We're just after 16.5 minutes, something like that. And there's one more thing I do want to go over. I know it's getting kind of tedious to watch all of this, but it's the link element. And obviously you're going to find this helpful eventually. And you can just link to another page on your website, or another image, an external website, anything you want. So the way we do this, and I've mentioned this a few times in the past, is just with that A tag. But naturally, if we type some text into this A tag, so for example, click here to go to Google. If we go and preview that, it's obviously not going to do anything because it doesn't know to take us to Google. So to do that, we're going to actually be using an attribute on this A tag. This attribute is href, and we could type that in. And now we just have to enter an URL. So I'll type in http://www.google.com. Now if we preview this and we click on it, we go to Google. It's pretty easy. Now there's one more thing I want to talk about attributes, is that attributes don't require the quotes. So we can actually type in ahref equals http :// etc. without having those quotes in there. So a lot of people think that's really helpful just because shorter code means faster rendering times, especially when the page is really long and has a ton of content on it. However, it's not always the best choice. If the value of an attribute has certain special characters, for example, if it contains a quotation mark, a single quote, any of the triangular brackets, there's a whole bunch of different characters that can't be placed inside that attribute unless you put it inside quotes. So even though it might be nice to have that freedom to put in the quotes or not to put in the quotes, we have an example like this where if the image source is blah blah apostrophe.jpg, the page is going to render wrong because it doesn't understand why there's just a random quote there. So it's best just to throw in those two quotes around the value of an attribute just to make it easier on you and just to make it easier on the browser. It'll be much easier than trying to figure out why this attribute isn't being applied to a certain element. There's just way too many characters that are going to make it unusable. So again, I would just recommend putting those quotes around it and not having to worry about it in the future. Now, in the next lesson, we are finally going into the magic of CSS. And we're going to explore all the neat things you can do with it, and we're really going to get into really styling our page up and making it look amazing. So be sure to tune in for that.
Alright, well, now that we've gotten that over with, we're going to get into the second video about putting CSS into our page. Whoa. I went blurry for a second, that was weird. Alright, so we're going to put CSS into our page, and remember how we were talking about, we've got our HTML. So, all of our HTML, okay, is basically the structure, okay? We've got a few different tags that are block elements, and these block elements, such as your header, your footer, your article, all these tags they have no styling associated with them, okay? Which means there's no, if you put them in this tag, it doesn't make them bigger like an H1 header tag. If you put them in a paragraph tag, it doesn't make them stand out on a different line or put it in a paragraph. If you put them in, unlike the italicized tag, it makes it words italicized. So these tags were invented so that you can attach them to a CSS, a cascading style sheet, so that you can control them with the cascading style sheet so that they can have different elements and attributes based on whatever you want to do. So that's what we're going to get into next. So go ahead and finish watching this next video that we have, and we'll get things going, and hopefully your website will start looking cool. But we're going to get this, pay attention to the very first part of cascading style sheets, of getting it linking up with your website. So what you probably want to do is go to File, and I'll help you out and get it, just to set you up real quick before the video starts, so that you'll be ahead of it and you won't have to rewind it a bunch of times. Go to File and go to New, and what you're going to do is you are going to open up a new HTML or a new blank notepad, new blank notepad page, and you are going to File and Save As, and you are going to hit that drop down, and you are going to save that as all files, and you're going to save it the exact same place as your original file, and you're going to name it stylesheet.css. Stylesheet.css. big time. You got to make sure you name it exactly correct. Name it correctly so that you don't mess that up. So save that as stylesheet.css in the exact same place as your index.html file. That's important, okay? So once you do that, you can go ahead and click save, and then once you have that file, you can also open up your reopen your original index.html file. So we'll do that. We'll get our original file opened up, and we can start editing our, adding our HTML into it. So you're going to need two files open: your index.html file, and then your other file, your style sheet file. So let's get that. Let's go ahead and get both of those files open. And what you might want to do is put one of them right underneath of the other, and so that you can easily edit everything all together, nice and neat. So look, you can see I can go from one page to another just by clicking on it, nice and easy. So I've got all my pages together. Okay, so do that, and then now go on to this next video, and we're going to style our page a little bit. So, and I'll be butting in a little bit, as we learn some new things, so that I can show you, a second time, so you get exposure twice. So let's go ahead and start watching that. Okay.
Well, this is episode 6, and we are finally going into CSS. And the first thing we have to do before we can actually style up our page is figure out how we can link to that CSS style sheet so that HTML knows where to find it. So to do that, we have to first create that CSS file. So that's as easy as creating any other file. So I'm just going to make a new file here on my FTP and call it style.css. And I'm not going to enter anything in there yet, but I just want to make sure that the page knows where to find it. So you can see that the page that I have open and the style sheet are both on example.com. So let's first initiate a call to the style sheet. So to do that, we have to go into our head, and we're going to use the link element. And the link element is one of those self-closing elements. So we can just type a slash and then the closing bracket. We don't need an end tag. Now, we have to tell the browser that it's going to be our primary style sheet. So to do that, we're going to type a space, and then we're going to use the attribute rel, and we're going to set that to style sheet. Then we're going to do another space, and we're going to use another attribute, and that is type. And we're going to set the type of this document to text/CSS. So the browser knows how to interpret and read the data from that file. Now to actually tell it where that file is, we're going to use the attribute href. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We can just type in the entire URL. So for example, since they are both on example.com, I could just type in http://www.example.com/style.css. However, most people choose not to do this. The reason being, if you have to move these at any time, or if you just completely move over to a different site, then this is all going to be messed up and you're going to have to retype in every single URL. So to fix this, we have to use something called relative paths. And relative paths are just a way of telling the browser where a style sheet or another document is based on where the current document is. So for example, right here you see that the page and the style sheet are both in the exact same directory. They're both in example.com. So all we have to type in is style.css. However, let's say that style.css is in another folder. So I'm going to create another folder and I'll name it CSS. And I'll stick style.css in there. So now, how do we access that? Because style.css is no longer in the same directory. It's now in the directory CSS. Well, all we have to do is type in css/style.css. It just say.
Alright, so we've got our right now we've got our link relative. So remember the big thing is to make sure you spell everything correctly. So we've got link relative to the style sheet, and then type equals text CSS, text/CSS, and then our href. Our href is where is that that hyperlink? Where is that the link to that file? And since I created this style sheet, and hopefully you did it too, and you saved it in the exact same place that you saved your index.html file, all you will have to do is just type in stylesheet.css. Okay, and once you do that, it is saved. It is connected. If you type it in correctly, all of this whole line right here, this is another one of those self-containing attribute or self-containing tags. The link, it's just got one tag right here, just same thing as the image tag. It's different completely than the H1 where you have an opening and closing, so it's just one tag right there. So it's very important that you type everything correctly. Remember this, okay? So we're going to go back to the video, and you are going to we're going to fast forward and get through this, okay?
Style.css was in an even deeper directory, so I'll make another folder here, stick style in there, and you can see that style.css is
timeout. Okay, so when he's talking about directories, okay, he's meaning folders. So wherever the folder is located on your computer. So whether it's your My Documents folder, or your My Pictures folder, or you made a folder with it, or if it's on your desktop or somewhere, wherever it is, okay, you need to make sure you know exactly where your files are. Okay, and what I usually do is, to make things all nice and neat, I will create different folders. I will create one main folder with my index.html, and then I will create, inside that folder I will have index.html, and then I'll also keep the style sheet, the CSS style sheet, attached in the exact same folder, so it makes it nice and easy for wherever, whenever I try to link it. And then I'll keep images in an images folder. So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about directories.
CSS is now not even close to page.html. It's in CSS and it's in main. So we can just type in css/main/style.css, because that's where it is relative to page.html. It's not really that difficult. You just have to type it in based on the current document that you have open. Now let's say, what if page.html is in a folder? So I'm going to get rid of these two folders here, and I'll create another style, and then I'll stick our HTML file in this folder here. So now I have a bit of a problem, because style.css isn't in the same directory, so we can't type just style.css. It's also not in a directory that's next to page.html, so we can't type something like style/style.css. However, we do know that it is in the directory before page.html. So all we have to type is a .. And that means go back one directory. So page.html is here, then the browser is looking at this, and it's going to go back one directory, and then it's going to see style.css. Now, if just say there's another folder here that we stick the style sheet in, all we have to do is type that folder name after the go back one directory. So now what you're telling the browser is, okay, we're here. Now we're going to go back one directory, then we're going to go into the style directory, and then we're going to pull out style.css. And that's all the browser really has to do. So if you're kind of confused on what the relative path should be, just look at this and pretend you're interpreting it as a browser. So if you have something like //css/main/style.css, then you could say, okay, and so from this page we're going to go back a directory, then we're going to go back another directory, then we're going to go into CSS, into main, and pull out style.css. That's all the browser has to do. So now that you know that, we can go right into creating our CSS file and really adding a lot of content to it.
Okay, so that's pretty much the end of that video. Hopefully you understood and got to that part where you've got your style sheet linked in, because your style sheet, like I said before, your CSS, your cascading style sheet file, is where you're going to do all the color, the color and the size of the text, and change the fonts, the way everything looks, to make it, make your website look pretty. So that's important. That's important to know. Okay, especially if you do not get this linked in correctly, then nothing will ever work, and you will never see any change, and everything will just still be plain black and white. So get this finished. It's very important to get that correct. After that, what we're going to do is I want you to try this simple tag, and hopefully I know this video is going really long right now, and you probably didn't expect it to be this long, but we're going to do this one simple tag. So you need to go to, once you get it all set up, you need to open up your stylesheet.css, okay? And we're going to change the paragraph tag, okay? So right now the paragraph tag already has something. It already has something associated with it, and right now all it really has associated with it is that it chunks it together in one little part, just chunks it up. Okay, let's add something like let's make the color. Let's change the color. Okay, so to do that, what we do is we're going to add a P. We're going to add a little P to our style sheet. So P. Okay, and this is the first part of this, the very first part of it. So the P tag. Okay, that's the tag we want to change. Notice the P tag right here. We want to add a P to it. So when we do that, all we got to do is add a period and a P, and then let's enter an old tab. And it's a little. You add okay. It's the squiggly bracket, okay? The squiggly bracket. So you're gonna do an open squiggly bracket, and then let's enter in another line. Let's add some spaces to it. I like making everything look nice and pretty, with space, so that everything is well structured, so it's easy to read. Because once you get hundreds of lines of code on your page, it's gonna get jumbled up if you don't have it looking nice and pretty. So big thing we're gonna do is we are going to make our paragraph nice and pretty by adding some color. So let's do our opening tag. We'll do color, and then you'll do the color and the colon, space, and let's make it let's do green, lime green. So we'll do green, and then you'll do a semicolon, and then on the new line, next line down, you're going to do a close or a right bracket or a right squiggly bracket. So make sure, it's very important that you do it exactly like this, because it's very important to get it correct, because if you don't get it correct, then it's just all going to mess up. So it needs to be just like this. Okay, these are squiggly brackets. Okay, and you'll do color, and you'll do a colon, space, whatever the color you want to change it, and then the semicolon, and then you'll do a close squiggly bracket. So if we go ahead and hit save, we can go. It doesn't change anything on our HTML. Remember, our HTML is just for our structure. Our style sheet is where we do all the coloring and font changes. So if we go back here and we'll hit refresh, oh, it didn't work. What happened? Oh no. Maybe it needs to be that. Maybe I don't have it set up correctly. Let me see. How about let's just delete that. See if that works now. There we go. Okay, so period. Sorry, no period. Doesn't have to have a period. Period. You'll learn about the period here soon, about IDs and other different tags about it. But you'll add some different things here soon. But so here, let's talk about. You just add the P because it's already a tag, and in your style sheet, now you have your P. So where did the color? It's green. Now it's green. Let's try making the size. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So right now the default is 12px. Let's make the default, let's do it 16px. So 16px. So the size of it, file save. Let's refresh it. Sorry, I was wrong on the tag. It's got to be font dash size. I'm sorry. And there's a CSS cheat sheet too, which you should probably go find. So font size, you refresh it. Oh my gosh, I'm just completely messing up all of this CSS. What am I doing wrong here? Huh. Well, let's look it up. Let's look it up on our cheat sheets. So instead of HTML cheat sheet, let's type in CSS cheat sheet. Let's look for one that might be right. How about this one? CSS cheat sheet. And I'll go to it on Google with you guys so you can see. So our cheat sheet, we have coming down. Just want to preview. What does it look like? Our cheat sheet. Height, no. Are we gonna do? We're gonna do font size. Font size. That should have been it. Font dash size. Huh. Very strange. Very strange why it's not working. Well, let's get it going. Is there something wrong with my style sheet not working? Maybe my size is already correct. Let's bump that up to 20. Maybe that'll change it. Oh, there we go. I thought something was going on. So the base font is 12px. So we need to bump that up to 20 if you want to make it bigger, or maybe you want to make it smaller. Maybe you want to make it 8px. Make it really small. However that might be. So we bump it down to 8px, make it small. Ooh, now it's itty bitty. You see that? Itty bitty. Let's bump that back up to 21px. So px means pixels. Okay, that px, when you see pixels like that, I mean size. So just know that for later. So that looks pretty good. Now let's see. Let's add the H1 tag. So H1 and then the open bracket, enter. And let's change the color of that color to blue. And then let's close that up. Okay? File and save. We'll hit refresh. And notice how it changed to blue now. So now we got blue and green, and we're starting to get some color into our website. Okay, so there's a lot more tags that we're going to go over when we talk about cascading style sheets. So looking up a cheat sheet like this on whatever website you can find is very, it helps a lot. So we'll try to get that going, and we're going to work on our websites and get these things looking really cool and nice. Okay, so hang in with me, and if you have to, if you can, skip on ahead and go to that video number 7, but we'll get it going, and I will help you get everything going. Alright, so good. Thanks for tuning in and hanging with me this long. Sorry it took so long, okay? I'll see you later.